continuing chapter 9, page 155. But these videos, just got a couple of videos here that are not corresponding with the book, but it's just educational stuff for us being in the real estate business. We should know certain things, how systems in a house work, and like how when you open the faucet, water comes out of it and stuff like that.
How does drinking water get to your home?
Well, let's start skipping some of these little interviews because they always got these little interviews with adults and kids at the beginning that give all kinds of weird answers because nobody really knows. Because we're so used to our modern amenities that hey, we just open the faucet and the water like magic just appears.
Purple. Ah, nature. So beautiful and calm.
Hey, Splash, did you know that reservoirs like this are one of the places where we get our drinking water?
Wait a minute there. You don't want to drink this stuff. I'm telling you, I've been in a lot of water, including this reservoir. You know what's in there? Fish. You know what they do, right? They
Oh, Splash, don't even go there.
You know, a lot happens to this water before we can drink it. You're telling me, hey,
all of this looks so familiar.
New Jersey.
What's that?
All of these, I see all of these pumps every day at my job.
I was just thinking that, yeah, because that's where you work. Okay.
Yeah.
American Water's experts work round the clock, removing bacteria, viruses, micropollutants, and other harmful particles from the water you drink. They do such a good job that American Water often provides water service that is better than what the government requires.
The treatment process begins here, at the pumping station.
Pumps draw raw water from reservoirs, lakes, rivers, streams, wells, or underground aquifers. Water travels by pipeline from the pumping station to the treatment facility. The first step in the cleaning process removes sediment and particles from the water with the help of coagulants. What? Coagulants are chemicals that act like magnets. They cause particles in the water to stick together. These groups of particles are called flock. I didn't know I had it in me. American Water uses two common processes to separate and remove flock from water. One sinks flock to the bottom of a tank. The other method pumps air into the water and flock, causing residual particles to float to the top. The separation of water and flock is called clarification. With either method, the clarification process removes most of the flock from the water. The next step, filtration. Whoa! Hey, watch it! Can a water droplet get a bruise? Sheesh! Oh! Wow! I just got pushed through layers of activated carbon, sand, and gravel. Please tell me I'm clean.
Yeah, sorry, Splash, you're not completely out of the water. You're filtered, but you might be infected with tiny microorganisms. Don't worry. Disinfection doesn't hurt. Chlorine and ozone are just two of the ways we disinfect water at New Jersey American Water.
I love chlorine. It's been disinfecting water and keeping me clean for over a century. But what's ozone? Ozone is supercharged oxygen. These bubbles scrub and disinfect. Viruses, germs, and fungi don't stand a chance. Hey, it tickles. Stop it already. I'm gonna wet my pants.
Hey, Splash, guess what? You're finally drinking water, ready for distribution to homes and businesses.
Are you sure? How do you know?
New Jersey American Water's certified operators and water quality specialists test and monitor water throughout the treatment process, from source to tap. In fact, we conduct thousands of tests on your drinking water.
I'm certified, verified, decontaminized, and feeling fine.
All right. Well, after the water treatment, now how do they get it to your home?
Splash. Splash. Splash, wake up.
Whoa, you startled me. I was just looking for leaks.
Oh, Splash, it's okay to be tired. Traveling from the water plant to the tap is a long journey.
You're telling me. New Jersey American Water maintains almost 9,000 miles of pipes. Not to mention tanks, pump stations, hydrants, valves. Whew, I get exhausted just thinking about it.
That's right, and each one has a big role to play. First, pumps move the water from the plant out to thousands of homes and businesses. Statewide, New Jersey American Water delivers about 330 million gallons of water to 2.5 million people each day.
That's no small task. Each gallon weighs more than 8 pounds.
That's right, Splash. Along the way, water towers hold thousands or millions of gallons of water. These towers help to provide reliable service when demand is high and during emergencies like power outages and fires. They also help to improve water pressure.
That's good. Sometimes I need a little help. Up hills, though.
You're in luck, Splash. Pump stations help deliver water to customers at higher elevations.
Phew. Thanks for the boost.
Like the water towers, these pumps also improve water pressure for homes, businesses, and emergency services. New Jersey American Water also maintains 45,000 fire hydrants across the state.
Wow. There must be a lot of happy dogs in the Garden States.
There's more. Valves located throughout the pipelines reduce the number of customers impacted when repairs are needed or breaks occur.
That's really important. Not to be a wet blanket, but some of those pipes are getting pretty old.
How old are New Jersey's water pipes? Probably old. Hundreds of years old.
300 years.
600-700 years old. I have no idea. 20 years old?
A lot older than me.
Hopefully they're not that old.
They're not as old as George Washington.
New Jersey American Water's pipes range from less than 1 month to over 100 years old. Here we have the historic district. These pipes were installed in the early 1900s and are still serving customers today. Ah, yeah, some pipes like this still work, but they're getting old and they won't last forever. Ah.
You're right, Splash. That's why New Jersey American Water has invested more than $150 million each year to improve its systems. Of that, $40 million is spent each year on replacing and fixing old pipes and equipment. But even that's not enough to keep up. At that rate, it will take hundreds of years to get to them all.
Hundreds? That's a long time. Won't the pipes start to break before then?
Yes, and fixing breaks can cost 10 times more than replacing pipes.
Wow, so investing in our water systems is more important than ever. That's good. I could use a raise.
Don't get too excited, Splash. New Jersey American Water still costs less than a penny a gallon. But if we want to replace these pipelines and upgrade facilities at a faster pace, we'll need to invest more.
That's okay. We can all benefit from new pipes, tanks, pump stations, fire hydrants.
What are you still doing here? Your break was over 10 minutes ago, and I need you at pump 6.
Oh, I'm in hot water.
Well, New Jersey legislature is also working with a lot of water companies, giving them money to try to get them replacing pipes too, because there's a lot of lead pipes and galvanized pipes that need to be replaced with mandates. Plus, when it comes to our sewer systems, which we didn't get to yet, I mean, other states may be a little bit different, but New Jersey, we're working on separating our fresh water that goes to treatment plants from the rainwater that goes to treat fresh water and waste that goes to treatment plants from our rainwater that goes to treatment plants or goes back out to the ocean, so that you don't have to really be treating rainwater. But right now, our systems are combined. We're trying to separate them, and that's a massive undertaking, separating them. When they're combined, it's easier for the streets to flood and such, because all the water is going to the same place. So you could, well, they spoke a little bit about the pumping stations and water towers and all that stuff right there, but we'll see some other info.
At New Jersey American Water, we work hard to keep your life flowing. One question we're sometimes asked is, what do water towers do? We have nearly 200 water towers across the state, and they provide water pressure throughout our system. Each foot of height provides almost half a pound per square inch of water pressure, so they must be tall enough to supply the needed pressure to customers in the area. The tanks themselves are quite large and can hold upwards of 10 million gallons of water. That's over 300 times the amount of water in an average swimming pool. Water towers are also used as storage to help supply extra water when a lot of people are using
Good
water,
morning. How are you?
like in the morning and evening when
Good.
people are taking
I'm
a
calling because I'm going to need
the
a
bathroom.
refill on my pain medication.
Oops, you need that.
During the middle of the day and overnight, when less water is being used, we restore levels in the water towers so they are ready to be tapped again. Just one more way we keep life flowing.
So that's basically how water towers get the pressure going out to your house. Now, this is an important thing and about the plumbing systems that work in your house.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another instructional video. In this video, I want to cover how the plumbing works in a typical home. Everything we do pretty much relies on plumbing when you think of it for a second. Whether it's washing your car or brushing your teeth before going to bed, you're using your home's plumbing system. A home's plumbing system is composed of 4 things: waste drains, waste vents, potable water, and rainwater management. So let's go through each process one by one and talk about what they do. Let's start off with the drains. Most homes have either ABS, PVC, or cast iron drain pipes and vents. These pipes are connected to all the fixtures in the home, such as toilets, sinks, bathtubs, and showers. When the fixture is used, the waste is carried inside these drain pipes that have a slight slope to them down the main drain, up until it reaches the municipal drain under the street. I'll also show where this waste goes later in the video. Every here and there, you'll find cleanouts like this. These are what give you access to the inside of the pipes in case there's a blockage. Most homes in the US also have these outside, so it's easier for the plumber to access it. As for pipe sizes, most toilet drains are 3 inches, kitchen and bathroom sinks are 1.5 inches or 2 inch if it's wet vented, and showers and bathtubs are 2 inches by code. The main stacks are either 3 inches or 4 inches depending on what the code asks for in your municipality. But some homes don't have municipal services, so how do they get rid of their waste? Simple. The main drain pipe that would normally go to the sewers goes into what's called a septic tank. This septic tank, which is either concrete or polyethylene, separates the solids from the liquids and flows into a leach field or drain field, which then goes into the ground to get naturally filtered. The solids, though, eventually need to get pumped out by a vacuum truck to make sure it functions properly. Now onto the venting. For these fixtures and drains to function adequately, the system needs to be properly vented. When a toilet is flushed, for example, the water pushes the air downstream, causing a negative pressure behind it. The vents are what equalize this change in pressure to prevent things like gurgling and P-traps being siphoned out, which would allow for sewer gases to find their way inside your home. These vents get their air through the roof and need to stay clear from bird nests and debris, or you're assured of having problems. Something else this vent serves is to relieve any pressure buildup inside the actual municipal sewer line. Some cities had their manhole covers blast up 50 feet in the air because rats would chew on electrical wires and would in turn create a spark and ignite the methane gas inside the sewers. So the vent minimizes the chances of this happening. As for potable water goes, it comes from the street like the other services and typically has between 40 to 80 psi of pressure. Every home with a water supply from the city has to have a shut-off valve outside just like this, in case the city needs to close the water. This copper line, which is normally 3/4 of an inch in size, comes into the basement through the concrete slab to another shut-off valve, which is only accessible to the homeowner. Here we see the hot water tank. Your hot water tank, which is either electric or gas-fed, is fed cold water to then heat it up and distribute it throughout the house thanks to the city's pressure. Some homes still have CPVC or copper lines, but new constructions use mostly PEX as it's reliable and quick to install. So back to before's question, how does one get water if there's no municipal services? In rural areas, people use wells. A well is basically a hole that's drilled approximately 500 feet in the ground to access groundwater via pumping. This water is pumped back up and goes through a series of apparatuses to make the water drinkable. A downside to this is if the electricity cuts out, you'll need a generator to get a glass of water. And the last aspect is rainwater management. In the past, rainwater and sewage was combined, meaning the rainwater went into the same sewer as the waste from your house. Since then, they've been separated to make water management easier. So when it rains, all of this water has to go somewhere, right? The rain that falls on the house's roof trickles into the gutters. Now, the gutter's job is to divert the water away from the house to prevent water infiltrations. So what most people do is install a 5-foot piece onto the downspout so the water has somewhere to go, which is perfectly fine. Other people prefer recovering this water in barrels to use as non-potable water to water their plants and flowers, and some actually connect them to the weeping tile or French drain. The French drain is the corrugated pipe that runs around the house's footing to catch any excess water in the ground. The problem when doing this is that the municipal drain could get overloaded very quickly and overflow. So it's best to invest in a rainwater collection system or to just let the soil absorb the water if possible. So where does all of this waste and rainwater go once it's in the municipality's hands? Both of these services head down the road, which eventually need to be lifted at a lifting station, which pumps the storm and wastewaters back up so they don't go too deep. The rainwater dumps itself into a nearby river, and the waste continues to the sewage treatment plant where it passes through multiple filters and treatment stages to then be released back into the nearest river, and the cycle continues. The water from the river is filtered and pumped back into the city's main as potable water, which is safe to drink. And that's basically how your plumbing system works. I hope this video clarified some things about how we use our water, and I believe it's important we all know how it works, as without it, we wouldn't have the same life quality as we have. Don't forget to share and give this video a thumbs up.
And by the way, if you get those, where's that plumbing where they spoke about the types of plumbing and the pipes that they have in the house? There we go. Listen, sometimes in some areas where you get listings, you may have people that steal copper. And if that ever happens where the copper actually gets cut out of the house, a little advice for you is to tell your clients, do not replace it with copper. Have their plumber replace it with PEX piping, because PEX piping is plastic. It's worthless. The junkies aren't going to be cutting it out to steal it. Okay. That's usually who's cutting copper out of a house so that they could sell it for the value of the metal. It's usually junkies that do that. All right. But I've come across that before. I had a listing once in Irvington where I had it was a 3-family house, and the copper was cut out of the house for the plumbing 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I told the guy, I was like, dude, stop replacing the copper. It's expensive. Replace it with PEX. Have your plumber replace it with PEX. They won't touch it because it's worthless to them. They can't get anything for it. All right. You ever see how those pipes are bent underneath your sink and ever wonder why?
No.
Well, this video will show you why, but it also will give you a little hints into troubleshooting some things too. Like if you ever hear water gurgling or have weird smells coming from the sink,
Yes.
okay, you could find out why. And this is good also, an easy tell when you're showing houses, how you could check out a house, you flush a toilet, and you could listen if you hear gurgling noises or weird smells. This could help aid in troubleshooting. Right.
If you notice a lot of extra piping under your sink, then you're looking at the P-trap. P-traps are named after their shape. They use a small bend in the pipe to trap water, creating a seal. This trap seal prevents sewer gases and odors from leaking into your home. As water drains through the P-trap, air is pulled from an outside vent to equalize the pressure. Now, if the vent is blocked by snow, ice, or debris, then the trap seal could be sucked out with the draining water. When this happens, you might hear a gurgling sound as air is pulled through the sink drain, and you might start to smell sewage coming out of that sink. Without access to outside air, the vacuum in the system might pull air from another plumbing fixture. For example, flushing the toilet could pull air from the sink, removing the water from the trap. So if you smell sewage out of the sink drain after flushing, this could be a sign of a larger ventilation issue. S-traps are similar to P-traps, but are no longer installed in homes because they have the potential to lose the trap seal. If enough water travels through an S-trap, it will create a continuous channel through the pipe and will siphon the water out of the trap. Fortunately, an S-trap can be retrofitted into a P-trap by adding a trap arm with proper access to an air vent. Additionally, a buildup of waste can also create problems. Strands of fabric and hair along the pipe can cause water to slowly leak out of the trap through capillary action. This is why it's important to keep the P-trap clear of debris.
And that's that. How about this? When's the last time you cleaned your shower head?
When's the last time you cleaned your shower head? Like took it apart and cleaned it? Well, we what Inside Edition discovered when we went looking inside shower heads, you just might make this your #1 cleaning priority. Here's Diane McInerney.
Taking a shower is something we all do just about every day. But you may be surprised to learn the awful truth that while you're getting clean, your shower head could be making you sick.
That's disgusting. I would never expect that.
The problem is the gook that may be lurking inside your shower head.
We're swabbing the shower head.
How bad is the problem? We took swabs from 11 different shower heads. It's a simple process. Unscrew the shower head and rub a sterile swab onto the shower heads and into the pipes. Next, we sent the swabs to Virginia Tech University. Top microbiologist Joseph Falkingham oversaw the testing.
Were you surprised by our results?
Yes, I was. There's some very high numbers that worry me.
Now it's time to reveal what we found.
Are you ready?
Yes, let's do it. First up, Renee Diaz, a mother of 2 from Manhattan.
Here's what we found. Fungus on the shower head. And that wasn't the worst of it. We also found it loaded with bacteria called mycobacteria that can cause lung infections.
Oh my God.
Pretty scary.
Oh my God, that's really scary and bad. I have kids.
Oh my God, what?
This mom, Lara Alcantara, had the same reaction when she was informed her shower head had fungus and was loaded with mycobacteria.
I mean, I'm a pretty clean person. I would have never thought that there would be fungus or any other crazy bacteria in my shower head.
Both moms wanted to know what to do next.
How do you fix it? Like, how do you get rid of that?
That is gross. So how do we clean it?
Here's what you can do. Soak your shower head in undiluted bleach for 30 minutes once a month, and then thoroughly rinse it off.
And if you do that once a month, the number of mycobacteria are very low.
About 30,000 mycobacteria infections are diagnosed every year.
And
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm gonna go clean my shower head. I'll be right back.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I swear.
I clean that. but not the inside.
No, neither do Leah.
Yeah, I mean, who would think, right? Well, do you know that what about this? If people who live in maybe high rises and buildings that have more than 10 to 13 stories, how do they get water pressure to their house? How do they get water pressure to their unit? I mean, that's a lot for the city to deliver the water that high up. The pressure won't go up that high and then have any significant pressure. Those buildings would have to have pumps in them that run constantly. Then that could get expensive, having those electric water pumps running all the time. So what a lot of those buildings do that usually have that many stories is they have water towers on the roof. Like the American Water has water towers. Well, these water towers, they would have pumps in the building that pump the water to fill these water towers so that the pumps don't have to always be running. Plus, when you turn on the water, that takes a while for the pumps to build up the pressure for it to actually come out of the faucet. So this way it's instantaneous. So those water towers are holding water on standby. That's why you see in New York City, if you look at the roof line, many of those roofs have water towers on them. Same thing in New Jersey in buildings that are taller. That's the way that they get that water pressure in. But the New York City, I know, I'm not sure about New Jersey. I'm sure they should have some kind of similar regulation. But I know New York City has a law that basically says that the building owners are required to drain those water tanks once a year. Just open the tank up and let all the water and any gook and junk come out of it as well. Not even to clean it, just to flush it out once a year. Otherwise, there could be dangerous bacteria that grow in them, even Legionnaire's disease, the interesting thing is when I saw the story on that one is there's a law that says that owners need to do that, but the majority of them don't.
Wow.
So that's something interesting to think about too when buying you may be, well, I want the penthouse on the roof, Oh yeah. Well, what about the water pressure there? How are they handling that? Just thought to consider.
When's the
All right, what is this? How wells work? Okay, we're not really going to get too deep into the wells. This one's it's very interesting, but you guys can watch this one on your own. It's very interesting, but it's kind of long talking about well water and such. Most of the properties we deal with don't have well water, but some do. So this is not a bad one to watch, but we're also doing a little game of catch up here too. So we got to limit the videos that we're watching here too.
For many.
All right. But one thing we can do is show the water about contamination for natural things like arsenic. We should have filtration systems in our house, especially if you're on well water, but it could be even if you're on city water, but definitely if you're on well water.
Water pollution is a common environmental problem in the world today. Often we think of water pollution as caused by human activities, as was the case for the recent water crisis in Flint, Michigan. But is all water pollution caused by humans? Not always. For example, groundwater contamination by arsenic is a natural occurring process and is becoming a worldwide environmental issue. In South and Southeast Asia alone, more than 100 million people are exposed to arsenic-contaminated groundwater, leading to severe health problems including cancer and skin disease. Arsenic is a chemical element that is often found naturally in minerals. If you drop a rock containing arsenic into a cup of pure water, odds are not much will happen because most forms of the mineral are not soluble in water alone. However, if we add the right mix of microbial organisms and organic carbon into this cup and take out the oxygen, the mineral will break down and release arsenic into the water. Even though all this is happening naturally, human activities such as well drilling and irrigation can change the groundwater flow pattern and introduce more organic carbon that will further facilitate the arsenic release process. If your well water turns out to be contaminated, there are a few options to regain potable water in your household. The first option is to join a public water supply system. The second option is to install an arsenic filter for your well. The last option is to drill or switch to a new well that is more likely to produce arsenic-free groundwater. In less developed countries, the last option is often preferred due to the absence of a public water supply system or effective water monitoring and treatment equipment. Today, international science communities such as MIT have built many study sites in arsenic-affected regions. The research effort has also motivated programs that are in place to help affected populations regain clean drinking water.
And New Jersey actually has loans available for people to install water filtration systems in their homes. They have interest-free loans, $10,000 interest-free loans to install water filtration systems. And the New Jersey Realtors Association, petitioned the state and was able to get the state to give people tax breaks. You could do tax deductions on your taxes when you file them, if you for testing of the well water. So you can deduct $500 off your taxes to do water tests to check on your well water regularly. So that's if it's supplied by wells. And here's a direct link to water filtration system loans to the NJHMFA. They have a program available that allows you to get interest-free loans, I believe up to $10,000 to have those your water tested. I'm sorry, to have the water filtration systems put in. Okay, where's that link here? NJHMFA. What am I missing out here? There we go. I'm just trying to steal this link so that I can put it into our class links well document. Word document.
So you found out you have unhealthy levels of naturally occurring arsenic in your well water. Unfortunately, northern New Jersey groundwater is especially vulnerable to arsenic contamination. There are two types of arsenic to watch out for: arsenic 3.
And the reason is we got this this Piedmont section where of shale in the ground, and that could be more conducive to having arsenic in the water when you have well water.
There are two types of arsenic to watch out for: arsenic 3 and arsenic 5. The most effective treatment methods remove both types of arsenic. Installing any of these systems into your home can be an easy and affordable investment in the health of your family and the value of your home. In this video, we will explain two effective treatment systems and how to maintain them in order to keep the toxin out of your home. Whichever system you choose, be sure to test annually to help determine if treatment units need replacement. The point of entry system treats high levels of arsenic in your water through a tank system.
All right, let's stop right here. This is, if you see something like this outside of a house, that means that they're on well water. Okay. Now, they could have upgraded and connected to city water, but usually you'll find something like this close to the house. It's not going to be far from the house. But if you see a pipe sticking out of the ground like this with a bolted on cap on there, well, there's a pump down in there that's pumping out the water, and electric lines. You can't really see it from here, but there's a notch there where the electric lines come up and go down, and a pump is submerged into this. It's about a 4 or 5 inch diameter pipe that goes deep into the ground, and then it pulls the water back up. This is just a well cap to prevent any garbage or animals from falling down in this well. Now, they mentioned the point of entry system. Point of entry system is where all of the water that's entering the house is being filtered, running through a filter. It's being filtered from the point of entry into the house. That's the point of entry system, or POET system, they may refer to it as a point of entry treatment, POET. Sometimes on state exam, they may mention that.
Okay, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, and then otherwise you have these filtration systems that you can put at point of use. That's like under the sink. If you have an under the sink filter, that only filters that one sink, that one place that where it's being used.
treats high levels of arsenic in your water through a tank system installed in your basement. It is the most effective in reducing overall exposure to arsenic. The primary benefit of the whole house treatment is eliminating the risk of drinking arsenic-contaminated water from untreated faucets, and it also prevents arsenic exposure from other water uses such as bathing and brushing teeth. This is especially important if you have young children who may not consistently use water from a single source.
And in this case, you're looking at a larger filter, several feet in height, and it's traditional to the same type of tanks that are used for people to use in their house for softening the water. So we're using the same type of apparatus, and we put the media into those tanks. And then there's a valve that is placed on top of that tank that operates the system and makes sure that the homeowner has the easiest operation to handle.
The system is comprised of two tanks. Each tank contains ferric oxide media, granular ferric oxide. The first is the worker tank that takes care of the majority of the arsenic as it comes in. And the second is the safety tank that will gather any arsenic that may make it through this. This does the primary job, and again, this polishes them.
The installation process takes only a few hours, and maintenance is simple. Though the installation cost for the point of entry system is the most expensive, the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency offers interest-free loans to help you cover the cost. The media inside of the tanks only needs to be replaced every few years, leaving the average maintenance cost to be less than $1 a day. Point of use systems use under-sink cartridges to remove arsenic. The system provides treated water for drinking and cooking use from one tap only, usually the kitchen sink. Maintenance is very important to ensure that the filter continues to work and generally only requires changing the cartridge once a year. That being said, this point of use system does not protect your family when they are drinking from other taps that provide water for bathing, showering, and brushing teeth.
When we found out that the water in our home is contaminated with arsenic, we decided that the point of entry system would be the best option for us. Now, my husband and I generally drink from the kitchen tap, but we were worried with having a small child at home that she might be drinking from other faucets in the house that would be untreated. Now, the only downside to the point of entry system really is the initial cost, but luckily there are no interest loans available from the state, so we didn't have to wait until we had that extra money available in order to start treating our home immediately. When we got the treatment system installed, we were told that both testing and maintenance are both really important. Once a year, we'll go down to the basement and we'll check the water between the two treatment tanks, and then we'll also check the water at the kitchen tap. We'll call up our treatment company whenever we need help changing out the sediment filters or every few years when we have to replace the tanks. So we understand that the treatment medium doesn't last forever. All in all, though, we are able to treat all of the water in our home with an average long-term maintenance cost of about $1 a day.
You've already tested your water and found it to have high levels of arsenic. The next step is to find a treatment system that fits the needs of your home. Installing a system is easy, affordable, and will increase the value of your home. There are several questions you should ask your treatment professional about the system they will be installing to ensure that you get the right fit for your home. Make sure the system you are having installed treats both arsenic-3 and arsenic-5. Ensure that you are clear on the required maintenance of your system. Ask the treatment professional what options they have for reminding you about scheduled maintenance and see if they can leave a testing kit at your home after they install the system. Ask your treatment professional if your water has been tested for other contaminants. If your water does have significant traces of other minerals, ask how you can remedy these issues to ensure both higher water quality and a longer lifespan for your treatment system. Check that the volume of water the treatment system processes is enough to meet the needs of your family. To protect yourselves and the ones you love from the harmful effects of arsenic, it's crucial to not only install a treatment system, but to maintain it as well. Be sure to test your water annually, even after you've begun using your system, to make sure your system is still working. To get more information about how to have these treatment systems installed in your home, please visit our website by Googling the New Jersey Arsenic Awareness Initiative. Once there, you'll find resources you need to protect your home, including 0% interest financing options offered by the state of New Jersey. Check the treatment options page for treatment professionals near you. Use the checklist to remind you what questions to ask when considering which system to install. A cost survey summary shows the range of installation costs you may find, and see the frequently asked questions for other questions you may have. By ridding your house of arsenic with a treatment system, you'll have peace of mind knowing that you have clean, safe water for your family to use.
All right. And that's because it is an issue, but also is lead, those those lead pipes that we know in the ground. Lead is become an issue that we've all become aware of, you know, with lead pipes after that Flint, Michigan scare. But water companies have known about it for a while, and they've been working on it. Now, should you be scared and worried about water and lead pipes if you do have lead pipes to your house? No, just notify the water company. They will be replacing them. There's a mandate, they have to by law, but you got to check and see if your pipes in your house are lead too, because you could have lead pipes that are delivering the water to the house. Now, what it's recommended is that you just run the water for a little while to clear out any standing water that was standing in the lead pipes, because that could then maybe get trace amounts in there. But if you run the water for a minute, you know, then before you use it, you should be good to go. So let's see. We got oh, actually, they should let them say it.
At New Jersey American Water, our business is water. One question we're often asked is there lead in my drinking water? Lead is not naturally found in drinking water. However, lead is sometimes detected in water from older homes and businesses built before 1986, when the Environmental Protection Agency banned the use of lead plumbing. We treat, sample, and closely monitor our water at various points throughout the system to ensure our water complies with all state and federal regulations. While the water coming into your home does not contain lead, if you have lead pipes, your risk of potential exposure to lead increases when the water sits unused for several hours. You can also reduce your potential risk of lead exposure by letting your cold water run for 30 seconds to 2 minutes before drinking or cooking. Water quality and customer safety have always been top priorities here at New Jersey American Water. And with such high quality, strictly regulated, and safely treated water available at your tap, why waste money on bottled water? Learn more about lead and the quality of your drinking water at New Jersey AM Water.
Okay, so now let's check. They have this, they put at least New Jersey American Water, depending on what your water company is, they're all required to put some sort of system in place where you could track down and see what kind of pipes you have in your home. So this video is explaining that, and I have a link right here to the New Jersey American Water's interactive map that you can plug your address in and find out if you have lead pipes bringing the water to your house, or if those or what they're made of, what the material is, or if you have water
At New
lead
Jersey
pipes in the
American
house.
Water, providing safe, reliable water service is our top priority. The state of New Jersey is now requiring all water providers to share with customers the material of the water service lines leading to their properties, if known. It also requires water utilities to replace all utility-owned and customer-owned lead and galvanized service lines within the next 10 years. If your service lines are lead or galvanized, it does not mean you cannot use water as you normally do. The water provided to you by New Jersey American Water meets state and federal water quality standards, including those for lead. So, how do you know if your service lines are lead or galvanized? You can visit our new interactive webpage and map to learn more at newjerseyamwater.com/leadfacts. Here, customers can enter their address to learn what their service line material is. Simply click on the map, agree to the terms and conditions, and hit OK. Then click on the Find Address field and enter the address. The map will zoom in on the address and show the service line material on the utility and customer side. If your customer-owned side is identified as unknown, or you believe it is not accurately identified, we invite you to help identify it and report that information to us. Follow the directions provided, upload a photo, and submit. Below the map, you'll find more information and resources. Click on Our Approach to learn about the steps we take to meet standards for water quality. Click on Assess and Reduce Exposure to learn how you can reduce the potential risk of lead exposure. The FAQ provides additional information.
All right, you get the general idea. All right, so if we were to click on this.
I was just going to suggest, can we check?
Yeah, I'll share that link with you guys right now. Okay, can you see the website though?
Yes.
Okay.
I wrote it down too.
All right, here. So I'll put it in the chat window so you guys can follow along if you'd like as well. All right. So basically, once you click on that link, it takes you to this page that has the videos and all that stuff explaining this. Now, if you see this, you get to this point, is your service line made of lead? If you were to click on that picture, it's going to load a map, as you could see it loading on my screen. You just click on I agree, okay. And you see all these little dots, all these circles. The right side of the dot, it consists of two halves. The right side is the customer's pipes material. The left side is New Jersey American's pipe material. If the color is black, that means it's a lead pipe. If it's blue, it's not lead. If it's white, it's unknown. If it's orange, it's galvanized steel. And as you can see on this map, there are some black ones and some galvanized steel ones all over the place. So right now, I didn't put in any address. It looks like it's zoomed in at in Red Bank. But if I put, you know, Sunnyfield Drive, Linden, New Jersey, that'll pull up near my house. Okay, I live on Sunnyfield Drive. So it just shows you the beginning of the street here. Okay, it comes out this way. So as you can see, there's no houses on this block here that have lead. They're not lead pipes that are bringing. But there's one house over here that is unknown. You see that? It's white on both sides. If it's blue on one side, they could tell you that the one side, the American Water side, is not lead, but they don't know what kind of pipe you have on the inside of the house. You have to snap a picture, send it over to them, and then they could verify it. Now, what kind of test? They basically have you do a scratch test with a penny or a nickel. They'll have you scratch the pipe and snap a picture of it in a couple places. Let's see. What about
how do you tell if it's lead?
Well, basically, it's basically the color of the pipe. But you could scratch it. They give a scratch test where you take a nickel or a penny and you scratch sometimes these pipes could have paint on them too, or they're just aged up a bit. So if you scratch it and then all of a sudden it becomes shiny, lead can become shiny like that. It's very malleable. But let's take a look. I think they even have a video of that on their page here. So on this page, before we clicked on that map to open up that map, here's a video that says how to locate what kind of water pipes you have.
At New Jersey American Water, drinking water quality is our top priority. That's why we're committed
to
to
show you right here in this video.
Galvanized service lines by 2031. To do this, we need your help identifying the material of your service line. It may be made of brass, copper, lead, galvanized steel, or PVC plastic. First, locate your service line. It will be near your main water shutoff valve, typically located in your basement, garage, or crawl space. Next, there are two simple tests you can do yourself to identify the material. When you conduct these tests, be sure to look at the section of pipe between the shutoff valve and the wall. For the first test, you will need a magnet, like one from your refrigerator. Put the magnet on the pipe between the wall and valve. If it sticks, your pipe is galvanized steel. A magnet will not stick to lead, copper, brass, or PVC. If the magnet doesn't stick, then you can move on to the second test. Grab a coin or a key and carefully scratch the pipe between the wall and the valve. Lead will scratch easily, revealing shiny silver color beneath. If your pipe reveals a copper or golden color when scratched, it is likely made of copper or brass. If the pipe is plastic, it will most likely be black, white, or blue. Be sure the pipe is not painted when identifying the pipe type. Once you have identified the type of pipe, snap a picture of it. If you perform the scratch test, please include the mark in your photo. Then visit NewJerseyAMWater.com/leadfacts. Search your address on the map and submit your photo. Thank you for your help in identifying or confirming the material of your service line. Learn more about our program online.
There you go. Question answered. At your service.
I want to go do it right now.
Well, hold on. We go break. All right. But look, you can see some of these properties if you just scan the neighborhood. Some pipes, some properties they do have galvanized pipes inside. Now, the galvanized steel pipes and the lead pipes, they want the water companies to be replacing. But what about when they're inside your house?
I checked mine and it says unknown.
Yeah, so you have to lead for the pipes that lead up to your house too?
Yeah, on this website.
So you could call the water company and try to find out. But you could also find out, like I said, if you you see where the water comes into the house, that service pipe, that's how you could find out if you scratch that pipe where it's coming into the house. Because that may be at that point, it may be after that point, it may be different pipes that are actually throughout your home.
And that would be in the basement.
Yeah. Basement, garage, wherever your water, probably close to where the water meter is.
Okay,
and the emergency shutoff, which you should know where that is on your house. Look at this house right here. There's a house right here I came across in my somewhere near my neighborhood. Look, they have lead pipes. They're like the only house in the neighborhood that has still a lead pipe service line going to it. Everybody else does not. But there's one house in the neighborhood. So you can't just assume that because all your neighbors don't have lead pipes that you don't. You got one house here in the middle of the neighborhood that's still got service lines that are lead coming to it from the water company. So the water company has to replace those by, what they say, within 10 years of whatever legislation was passed. So, okay, so there's some resources for you there. All right, let me go to that. Let me go to our Word document.
It's awesome how much information we get from you, other than real estate. Like, it's really cool to know this stuff. Thank you.
Kelly, it's funny. Wait, I know I shouldn't be talking a lot, but I was just thinking that yesterday I was going to ask Victor, have you ever thought about opening the business of being a mentor?
Well, having mentored classes and stuff like that for real estate agents, but even though with this kind of stuff, though, this is things that the general public should know. Even you don't have to be in the real estate industry to have knowledge of this stuff. But it's that's why I say sometimes these classes, even if you're not wanting to get your real estate license, just for the general information that I teach, everything from investing to safety issues to all kinds of stuff that are common. Real estate is a big part of our world. We all need a place to live, whether you're owning it or renting it. And we discuss rental issues, landlord-tenant issues. We discuss ownership issues, property rights issues. All kinds of safety issues. It's it's a lot. It's a lot, and I try to provide a lot of information, but I've cut back a lot on it because I tend to throw out a lot of this information. You really don't need to know it for exams. And so, but it is important to know if you're in the property business, and a lot of agents out there just don't know a lot of this stuff too.
Right.
So you could be a lot more helpful to your clients and be a better agent if you know this stuff, or you don't need to be an expert in it, but have some basic knowledge about it, so you know what to tell them what to look out for.
And for ourselves too.
Yeah, exactly.
And for yourselves, clean your shower head, right?
Totally.
What if you're in a high-rise building? You got the water towers on the roof. Oh, by the way, that video yesterday, I found the spot where in that video, remember I was telling you about Texas being the only state that doesn't have the zoning laws. Well, I actually found the section within that. It was within that same video. I found that section that that shows the that shows the no zoning laws, and how you could have built all kinds of stuff with that guy that got beer cans and stuff built next to it, or built as a siding for the house. All right. Oh, I gotta minimize. Browser. Okay. Oh well. Open up browser, recover my windows, which I left closed. Okay, so let me pull up the email on that, and I could even show you that. That with that in that part of that. Well, I'm not going to go to that video now, but in that part of the video, they spoke about how Texas is the only state that doesn't have any property laws. But keep in mind, they also have weird things going on too. You could have firing ranges next to places where they have compressed gas tanks. I mean, there's all kinds of safety issues pertaining to that too. So you got to outweigh your rights versus safety issues, But a lot of people here in New Jersey said, well, we want the safety issues instead. So we're going to give up our rights to the government and let them dictate what we could do with our property. And that's the decision that all the states made except for one, Texas. Trying to pull up that slideshow again here. Can you guys see the slideshow? Oh, let me stop it. My slideshow window's not open. Oh. Screen. All right, let me close that window for the slideshow and try reopening it because something's happening here. Lost my spot. Okay. Opening it up. That was in the 70s. All right, so the last one that we looked at was those water pipes. All right, so this is the last slide we looked at. I was just adding this link to our ClassLinks Word document. Something got hosed up in the whole process. Okay, next thing is the underground storage tanks are USTs. We need to know about USTs. When underground storage tanks, they could store thousands of materials or chemicals. We are familiar with residential real estate where they hold sewage or water or wastewater from the rain or from oil for heating oil. So when tanks are actually in the ground, underground, and they're no longer used, they're required to be decommissioned. They need to be tested by an EPA certified company to ensure that there's no contaminants that are leaking into the environment. And they need to be emptied, cleaned, and filled or removed from the ground altogether. So emptied and filled with an approved aggregate, a type of stone or soil or what have you, or sand. And then the ground needs to be tested to make sure that nothing leaked out. And other materials stored in underground tanks, we have oil, propane, sewage, septic, gas, diesel, dry cleaner chemicals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But either way, we need to know that USTs, they need to be decommissioned when no longer in use. Here's an oil tank that they pulled out of the ground. These are usually in front of the house or maybe on the side. But you don't know. How do you know? It's not actually visible, but you could look for signs in the basement where these may have the pipe. There may be a small pipe that leads to the house that feeds the oil in, or there'll be a breather tube outside somewhere for the tank, and a filler tube perhaps as well. You may be able to find. Those things should have been removed along with the tank if the tank was removed. So when it comes to these USTs, underground storage tanks, our politicians these days, they love pandering to the environmentalists, and they get to the point where they start saying, we want your votes and we want to get the favor of these groups. So what we're going to do is we're going to institute all kinds of legislation to save our environment at the detriment of property owners. Okay. The thing is they make it so that commercial real estate, if it has contaminants in the ground, they're allowed to remove oil tanks and leave small amounts of contaminants in the ground. But when it comes to the homeowners, they can't have any. They're stricter for homeowners. And who has to bear the cost of that? Not the home insurance company, because the homeowner's insurance was never meant to be an environmental cleanup project. It's meant for in case you have a fire in your house or there's an accident or something, not for oil tanks leaking and cleaning the environment in the ground. So it's become a battle, and that burden, those costs have been left entirely on the homeowner. And here are two parts of a series that's much longer, but here's two important parts about toxic NJ and what our politicians have put in place and the burden that they put on homeowners and property owners. Usually, if you're selling real estate and it has an oil tank in the ground, you're going to have an extremely difficult time getting a loan to buy that house or homeowners insurance.
I have an oil tank.
Three came at a time.
I have an oil tank. It's in my basement. That could easily be taken out, right?
Yeah. I did that myself, but you still got to be careful of how it's done. You got to keep documentation of it because they know that your house had oil in it at one point. So you need to make sure that the parts were disposed of properly. So basically, I took out my oil tank out of my basement. I let the furnace run it out and use up all the oil that could be used up before I changed and converted to gas. So I let it burn until it burned all the oil up. And then what I did is I cut the tank in half. I opened it up to vent it out, and I had all the windows and doors open in the basement. And I took a Sawzall, I cut the oil tank in half, the top part off. And whatever grease and sludge was left inside, I had some bags of Speedy Dry I threw in there, like mechanics use to soak it up. You can use kitty litter, does the same thing to clean all that up. So I had these 50-pound bags. I used about a bag and a half of that up to clean out the inside of the tank, scoop that stuff out, put that in trash cans, and that stuff can go out to the city dump. But then the tank you have to cut up and take to a recycling center. So I took that tank, threw it on the back of my pickup truck, took it to the recycling center in Rahway. They paid me for its weight in metal, and then they gave me a receipt showing that it was an oil tank that was taken in by them to the recycling center, so I could show that it was properly disposed of. So I keep that in my records in case someday down the road, got to sell the house. We have proof of what happened to the oil tank,
I plan to convert to gas eventually. I can pay someone to do all that stuff for me, right? Because I wouldn't know the first thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't undertake this on your. I mean, I'm a mechanical guy. I know how to do this crap. So for me, it kind of hurts me to have to pay someone else to do something I know I could do myself. Also kind of cheap in that way.
Can I pay you to do it?
I was thinking the same thing, Kelly.
What I said to do is you're going to run your heat until the oil is completely spent from that tank. So like if you're close to the end of the winter season, you're not going to have that many more cold days. Don't refill the oil tank. Don't pay to get more oil put in. And then this way it could, because otherwise it could be a month for you to burn up all that oil, so you just keep the heat on, and burn all that heating oil that's left in that tank that you can. And then you'll put that into the anything that's left, you could scoop out, put in a bucket or something, take it to the recycling center. You get some of that Speedy Dry from Home Depot. That'll soak that up, or you could have somebody do that for you,
But my oil heats up my water,
Uh-huh.
so I wouldn't have hot water if I let it run dry.
Well, that's why I said you're going to be doing this when you're going to be converting to the oil, or to the gas. Because your gas heater, so you're probably I mean, I don't know, you could get maybe one unit that does both, but usually they'll be separated. You're going to get a separate now gas water heater or on-demand electric water heater. You got to do your research, see what you want to do. There's pluses and minuses to them. And then you're also going to convert to probably a gas heating system, natural gas. You're going to notice incredible amount of savings on your bills. You don't have to shop around and price around for oil now to get it delivered and pay in advance, have any days without heat for when you
every couple months it's like roughly $900 to fill it.
Yeah, I remember them days. It's a lot of money. Look, you're going to be shocked of the savings of what you spend on your heating bill when you convert to gas.
Wow.
It's going to be a less than a tenth of what you're spending right now.
Wow. I have a question. So you said I would most likely need a new water heater system?
Yeah, because you have your heating system is also heating your water. It's providing heat to your house and your water. So
that sounds expensive.
No, not really. I mean, it's less than $1,000 for the water heater. Then and then you got the furnace itself. Depending on the type of heating system that you put in, will dictate the cost of it too. Those ones that you get the tax breaks on, those super high efficiency ones, well, those ones are extremely expensive, and quite frankly, the juice ain't worth the squeeze on that. So, you're better off just buying one of these systems that are maybe less than $2,000, maybe $1,500 to $1,500 to $1,800, and then you pay somebody to install it. You're better off going with PSE&G, just have them do it. They can get it done in a day. So you can have that conversion over done in a day for you. And then you can also pay for a plan with them that's basically a service and maintenance plan where they'll check it out every year and maintain it for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And if it breaks, they'll replace it for free because it's like an insurance plan.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I recommend that. I agree with Victor. I recommend that too, Kelly. That's what we did. We went with PSE and worry free. We don't have to worry. So
yeah.
And they'll probably dispose of the tank for me, right?
Well, you got to check with them. I'm not sure.
They'll tell.
But I assume they would. All right. So let's see now. We have these. Let's look at New Jersey and their toxic New Jersey plan here.
There's not an old oil tank corroding beneath your backyard. Chances are good there's one in your neighborhood, and insurance won't necessarily cover the astronomical cost of removing it. Tonight, the second installment of our three-part investigation into a danger beneath the soil. It's a collaboration with a dozen content partners, public radio stations, and private news organizations, both Rutgers and Montclair State University, facilitated by the Center for Investigative Reporting. Brenda Flanagan investigates toxic New Jersey.
It's caked in clay, but looks solid enough as the backhoe gently hoists Joan Fitzgerald's 500-gallon fuel oil tank out of the ground and into the air and deposits it on her front lawn and clips it. But back in the excavated hole, dark residue stains the dirt, and the odor of petroleum's heavy above the pit.
I can
smell it.
And you can actually even see it if you look far down there.
Environmental consultant Steve Rich chops at the clay. Underneath, holes appear in the 66-year-old steel. Daylight shines through some that are big as dimes. Those are big holes.
Yeah, it was, I think, unfortunately, quite a bit of oil which come out.
I don't know if I can talk to you right now, really. I'm upset.
See, that's one of the things they could check and see if the dirt is dirty, if contaminants have went out into the soil. But before they ever pull a tank out of the ground, there's another test that they could do and they should have done. And they could check for the water content in the thing. If you look at the filler tube where they pump the oil into the tank, they could actually take a sample of whatever's on the top layer of the oil. If it's all oil, well, you probably don't have a leak. But if there's water in the tank, most likely you have a leak, depending on how much water you have there in the tank, because there's condensation too. But they could have, there shouldn't be large amounts of water sitting inside the tank. That's something I told my brother not to do. He didn't wait for me, and he had a company dig it out, paid them thousands of dollars. It was halfway underneath his driveway. They had to rip up his driveway too and get that repaved. And when they pulled it out at the end of the day, there was no leaks. And then I went over and I leaned against the water. Leaned against the breather tube for the tank, and it was loose by the sidewalk. And then I seen that close to the sidewalk by the ground, where the tube was, it was rotted out. So water got into the tank. They did the water test, and water got into the tank through the breather tube. A little simple investigation would have figured that out too. So he never had to have that tank removed, but I guess it's better in the long run that he did. But funds were available then for him to help subsidize that cost. But they're going to go over that in this video too.
Okay. Whole week, and now this puts the icing on the cake. Jones Tank is only one of an estimated 100,000 fuel oil storage tanks buried underground across New Jersey, ranging in size from a couple hundred gallons to monsters holding thousands of gallons. How often do you see something like this?
Quite a bit. Maybe 50% of the old tanks, they do have holes. They do leak.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in the ground a long time. That's why.
Serious cases where plumes of contamination ride groundwater channels far beyond the tank pits require extreme excavation.
It was pretty bad. As you could see, the house had to be put on piles and beams to remediate the soil.
He figures cleanup will run a couple $100,000. Insurance might cover half. The DEP's notified whenever a critical level of contamination is detected and gets a technical report when it's remediated. Homeowners then get a letter certifying cleanup's complete, and they can't sell the property without it, he says, because banks won't offer mortgages on homes with underground oil tanks. The grant money New Jersey set aside to help compensate homeowners for fuel oil tank removal can't keep up with demand, with a waiting list 1,700 names and 4 years long. So
some are waiting in and out, and some are walking away from their homes.
Walking away.
They walk away from their homes. They just don't have the equity in the property to ultimately pay for remediation and get it cleaned up.
And they're really like the Wild West. You just have these tanks out there that invariably at some point in time are going to leak.
Environmental attorney Stu Lieberman points to New Jersey's 2005 fuel oil tank exclusion policy. It lets insurers opt out of paying for damages from tank removal unless homeowners can prove that oil leaked before 2005.
It's a sin. It's really a crime that the Division of Banking and Insurance allowed the insurance companies in New Jersey to stop covering these things.
Yeah, that's a politician's view. Those insurance policies for homeowners insurance were never meant to be environmental cleanup plans. The politicians just tried to push it on the insurance companies. And now they're saying that it's a crime. Well, it's a crime that the politicians are making the homeowner responsible for doing these cleanups too.
So it is that there are many homeowners that don't have coverage and don't know that they don't have coverage.
New Jersey's Fuel Merchants Association questions whether lack of DEP oversight on oil tank removals is driving up costs, especially if an insurer is picking up part of the bill to fix those oil leaks that occurred more than a decade ago.
The costs just seem to be a lot more in the insurance world than they might otherwise need to be.
The costs that they sometimes incur for these remediations, it's really a market-driven process. And that's why the costs become so extensive in some cases.
The DEP says
in other words, it shouldn't cost that much to dig up some dirt and pull a tank out of the ground. The problem is the DEP, they want insurance, they want to make sure that there's zero contaminants left in the ground. So they want you to dig up any contaminated dirt, have it removed and cleaned by basically putting it in the oven and cooking it. But in the meantime, cooking the contaminants out. In the meantime, replacing it with a fresh backfill, so the costs actually are driven up because the insurance companies and the state are willing to pay some money towards that. So those people that are removing the tanks are going to charge more for the process. It's driving up the costs.
Regulations permit industrial cleanups to leave behind small amounts of contaminants in the soil, but for home sites, banks and buyers demand much more stringent remediation standards.
There's no ability to obtain a permit to leave any contamination behind.
To help save cleanup costs, the DEP is now considering a controversial fix to relax some cleanup regulations for homeowner tanks of less than 2,000 gallons. Meanwhile, Senator Jennifer Beck sponsoring legislation that would require insurance companies to start offering fuel oil tank liability policies to homeowners again.
If they don't want it, they have to sign and certify a letter back to the insurer that they don't want it. Otherwise, the homeowner's insurance company must provide it automatically.
Homeowner's insurance was intended to be there for the structure and for your belongings inside. It wasn't there to be a hazardous waste plan.
The insurance lobby says those policy changes and oil tank exclusions were very clear, and insurers do not want to walk it all back a decade later.
At the heart of this, it's an environmental issue. It's an issue of maintenance, it's an issue of warranty, and it's an issue of making sure that you've replaced these tanks.
Back in Clifton, Joan Fitzgerald just heard cleanup will cost $75 grand to remove 125 tons of contaminated dirt. But she says she unwittingly made a mistake by converting to natural gas heat before she removed the oil tank, and that voided her insurance policy.
You think State Farm is going to help pay for it?
No.
Why not?
Because I just don't think they will. Yeah.
State Farm told NJTV News that it's actively working with Ms. Fitzgerald about her claim. Now, across New Jersey, underground storage tanks and contaminated soils from old gas stations and dry cleaners lurk underground. You might be living right next to one and not even know it. We'll talk more about that tomorrow in the newsroom.
So then that leads us to the next news story in this series.
Good question for you. Do you know how much you actually weigh?
Yeah.
New Jersey's toxic legacy doesn't just reside in its many Superfund sites. It also lies in thousands of underground oil and gas tanks, growing more corroded by the year, leaking toxic materials into the ground beneath gas stations and backyards up and down the state. Tonight, we begin a three-part investigation into a danger beneath the soil. It's a collaboration with a dozen content partners.
Yeah, we already went over that.
Brenda Flanagan investigates toxic New Jersey.
It was something out of a fantasy dream, like a nightmare almost, but it was really happening.
Elliot Zygmunt's lived with a fuel oil tank nightmare for 6 long years. His yard on Larch Avenue in suburban Teaneck is pocked with test wells that monitor contaminants still flowing in the groundwater beneath his property, despite cleanup costs now pushing $600,000. The oil leaked from an old fuel tank once buried in his side yard.
We wanted the tank out of the ground. My oil service company told me it was a ticking time bomb. Even before they got the tank out of the ground, they smelled and saw oil. They saw holes in the tank. It was bad.
And it got much worse. After the contractors winched the tank up out of the ground in July 2009, they tested the soil and discovered serious contamination, a toxic plume of volatile organics that flowed beneath his neighbor's home as well.
In the first couple of years of this was really my house, my property. Their property was a construction zone.
What did your neighbors say? How did they react?
Not well. They didn't take it well.
I was so angry, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Neighbor Inez Solomon says she watched in frustration as workers jacked up Zygmunt's house and excavated 250 tons of tainted soil between their two properties, the remediation prescribed by Triassic Technology, which was hired by his insurance company. They replaced it with clean fill. The result? There's still oil?
Yeah, there's still oil.
That's why monitoring wells still pepper both his property and the Solomons, connected by specially heated conduits to a shed in Zygmunt's backyard. The conduits lead to a filter that removes any residual oil seeping from the water table into the monitoring wells.
This is basically a very sophisticated Big Brita. That's the way it was explained to me, a Big Brita filtration system.
The costly hookup hasn't logged 2 consecutive clean months in more than a year of filtering. Zygmunt's insurer has since hired a different company, Earthworks Environmental, to try a new technique, injecting the ground with hydrogen peroxide. That might cost another $100,000. Meanwhile, Zygmunt says his insurance company figures it's responsible for 82% of the estimated $600,000 bill. And with the special state fund that reimburses homeowners for fuel oil tank removal costs basically broke, that'd leave Elliot Zygmunt on the hook for maybe $100,000. His home's appraised at only $300,000.
The fact that they're looking to clean up the state environmentally on the backs of single-family homeowners is just patently absurd. These are expenses that no single family should be asked to endure.
Next door, the Solomons feel similarly trapped. Their insurance company's response?
Our company will not touch this.
So you're just stuck?
We're stuck. We can't sell the property. We've asked whether we can sell it. We cannot sell it until this has been resolved.
And both families want to know why they're ultimately responsible for what amounts to a toxic cleanup project with impossibly high environmental standards.
There's no supervision from the NJDEP. Never once in this 6-year period has a representative of the DEP come out here and looked at the property or told me the job is being done correctly, the job is being done incorrectly, we might have done it this way, we might, it's just you're on your own.
Zygmunt's contractor, Triassic Technology, called this case an unfortunate circumstance because the house sits on shallow bedrock, where the water table fluctuates between the rock and the soil. That makes it a difficult cleanup. There's a lot more testing that has to be done. It's quite a bit more expensive. He faces the same cleanup standards as a chemical factory.
You can always find a case that everything just doesn't work right.
Assistant Commissioner Mark Peterson revealed the DEP is now re-examining cleanup standards for underground heating oil tanks.
Homeowners wanted that, so they had a greater predictability of the environmental professional doing the work, and some environmental professionals wanted that also. So we're working on those regulations to revise them.
We feel so exhausted and burned out by this whole process. I'm 70 years old. I mean, I've done all the correct things in life. I've brought kids up. I've always been an honest person. I'm looking forward to, my golden years here. And all I'm doing is wondering whether I'm going to have to abandon my house someday.
NJTV News contacted the DEP about Elliot Zygmunt's case, and a member of the department was there at his home when peroxide treatments began. He's hoping for success by next summer. But Zygmunt's only one of tens of thousands of Jersey residents facing what some call a fuel oil tank epidemic. We'll have more on that tomorrow. In the newsroom, I'm Brenda.
Well, I only got those 2 episodes to show you. You can look it up, Toxic NJ, on the New Jersey Spotlight News page to find out more. Here, let me actually subscribe to that so you could find out more about those issues. But it's interesting that if you were actually to look at the cleanup sites that they do for commercial sites, the DEP, they want to make sure they get started. And it's the same thing with the EPA. But then do they follow through with them, or then they get lazy about it and then after a while they don't care? There was a huge site like this of a factory, a company in South Plainfield. They ended up just, tearing down the whole building and everything and just plowing over the lot, or, paving over the lot. But yet the waterways nearby are getting all contaminated from the contaminants. And that company's still in business at locations elsewhere. But they're not going to fine them to death and get them to burden all the cleanup costs because they just go out of business. And they said their objective isn't to run people out of business, just to get stuff cleaned up. So they're paying a lot of money to get the stuff cleaned up. They got insurance for the stuff that's also helping out with that. But then the cleanup doesn't actually continue on. But yet the burden for the individual homeowner is through the roof, and they don't really have any leeway for those property owners, which is shameful. All right, so with underground storage tanks, we also have those septic tanks, cesspools, and tight tanks. Any cesspool or tight tank, as of legislation in 2012, the DEP requires that it be replaced with a septic tank or connected to city services. So if you ever get a listing to sell a house that has a cesspool, probably won't have tight tanks anymore, but a cesspool, it needs to be replaced with a septic system or connected to city services. Nothing for exam there, though. Basically, this is the way that your septic system works. It's a tank. It comes from your house. The solids get trapped in there. It has bacteria in there that eats up the solids, converts it to liquids. The liquids then flow out. For every gallon flushed down the toilet or taken in a shower or running the sink, 1 gallon will flow out of the tank and into the ground. So how do those septic systems work? I just had an interesting conversation yesterday about this. Last night, I was at Pool League last night, and we were somebody was mentioning and talking about septic systems, and they're like, "Well, that's weird because in the city you shouldn't have any septic systems." And I was like, "Oh no, they're all over the place over here. You could find them in Edison, Piscataway, places that you would think are they'd be hooked up to city services all over the place because it's not considered a rural area." But one guy was saying, "Oh yeah, you could find them in the usually out in farmland and rural areas." It's like, oh no, you get them all over the city here too, where people still are connected to well water and they got their septic systems that they have not connected to city services. So even though this one is from Michigan, I think, but the video is pretty good explanation. Sorry about that.
Over 40% of Michigan homes use septic systems to treat their household waste. These systems are underground, so are easy to ignore. But lack of proper care can result in costly problems that hurt our pocketbooks and our environment. Understanding your septic system is the first step to keeping it working properly. Here's how it works. When the wastewater from the house enters the tank, some of the solids settle to the bottom, and other waste such as oils and fats float to the top. Only the liquid from the middle zone leaves the tank for the drain field, where it flows through a series of pipes with openings that allow the water to percolate into gravel surrounding the pipes. As the wastewater moves into the gravel and the soil underneath, the contaminants in the sewage are filtered and treated with bacteria that occur naturally in the soil. Let's look at a few common myths. This family just paid $10,000 for their new septic system. Now our system will last forever. No way. The average life of a septic field is only 20 years. But until then, we can use it without a care. Actually, no. They must be treated carefully or they will fail even sooner. What goes down our drains is gone for good. Wrong again. Americans pump over 4 billion gallons of wastewater a day underground, and it doesn't just disappear. Septic systems connect to our environment. After being treated in our septic tanks and drain fields, wastewater re-enters our groundwater, streams, and lakes. Improperly treated household wastewater can contaminate our well water, swimming beaches, and wildlife habitat. Following a few simple guidelines will ensure your system works effectively. For instance, provide a barrier so vehicles don't drive or park over it. Compaction can remove the air spaces in the gravel, so critical to the percolation process. Tanks must be pumped regularly to remove the built-up sludge and scum layers. If there is not enough room in the tank for proper settling to occur, solids and fats can be pushed out before the tank can do its job. Solids that leave the tank can clog the pores between the stones. This will cause the drain field to become saturated and unable to treat the sewage, allowing contaminants to reach our environment and the system to back up.
Oh, no.
It's really important to be careful what you put down your drain. Put fats in the trash so they don't clog up your system. Don't rely on your garbage disposal to get rid of food scraps. Compost or trash them instead. Gardens love your coffee grounds, but septics hate them. Drains aren't trash cans. These are some of the worst cloggers. Put them in your trash, not down your drain. And just because a label says it's flushable or biodegradable does not mean it's safe for septics.
And because you have to periodically flush bacteria down the toilet to go into the septic tank to aid in breaking down the solid wastes, you should not use antibacterial cleaners because they would kill those good bacteria that are helping your system work properly.
And septics do not remove chemicals. Take things like solvents, paints, and pesticides to your local household hazardous waste collection site. Septic systems also don't remove the chemicals in medicines, and these compounds are showing up in our lakes and streams, posing a danger to wildlife. So wrap and trash them instead. Phosphates are found in most dishwasher detergents and are not removed by septics. They end up in lakes and streams where they cause an overgrowth of algae, which fouls our beaches and removes vital oxygen from the water. Look for phosphate-free. As each gallon enters the tank, an equal amount is pushed out. The tank needs time to do its job properly. So don't use a lot of water-producing appliances all at once, and don't let water run unnecessarily. Until you need it, turn it off. And save up for full loads of laundry instead of lots of little ones. Buy low-flow toilets and replace old laundry machines, shower heads, faucets, and dishwashers with the new ones that follow today's water-saving standards. If you have a leaky faucet or toilet, fix it immediately. Even a slow leak can overwhelm your system. Watering over the drain field can also lead to saturation and septic system failure. Remember, it's all connected. For yourself and for future generations, please take good care of your septic system.
All right, so it's basics on how septic systems work. And CERCLA is the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act. And CERCLA was an act through Congress that created what we call a super fund. Super fund is a $9 billion fund that the EPA uses to respond to hazardous waste sites and respond to the most severe ones and initiate cleanup on those sites if they cannot locate who was the cause, or if they do locate who the cause is, then they don't have the money to or refuse to do the cleanup. The EPA is authorized to hire contractors to do those cleanups. Now, $9 billion is not enough to clean up all the sites in New Jersey alone, let alone the entire United States. So you have our politicians here that are always pandering about the environment, to the environmentalists and how it's so important to them. They've given 50 times this amount to the Ukraine for their war over there, but yet for this has been going on since the 70s here in the United States, or I'm sorry, created in the 80s. That's been going on here in the United States to try to do these cleanups. And they have not, $9 billion is not enough just for New Jersey, let alone the whole United States. So they're not really serious in this. If they're giving away hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to other countries, then they should be able to give a little more than $9 billion for this cleanups here in the United States for the environment, right? Now, liability is held on the landowner. If you just bought a property and you find out it's contaminated, guess what? You bought into a problem. You're now responsible for it. Why? Because it's your property. It doesn't matter that you didn't cause the problem. The EPA and works with state agencies, and New Jersey has their own state agency, the DEP. They will hold you responsible for the cleanup on that site. Then you could chase after any future previous owners or people who caused the hazardous material to be released into the environment. But ultimately, who's held reliable for the cleanup? The property owner, whether it was their fault or not. Now, Industrial Site Recovery Act, ISRA, covers commercial properties, and it deals with wetlands as commercial properties. Basically, another piece of legislation by our environmentalist pandering politicians that basically say that any time a commercial property, a business closes or the ownership changes hand, that the property needs to be inspected and cleaned up for any hazardous material. The thing is, these laws are written in black and white, and there's no common sense in between. Because have you guys ever seen a gas station that's got a fence around it? It's closed up, and they're digging up the tanks out of the ground and then replacing them, and then you see them putting in new they repave it, and then the gas station's open again. You guys ever see that happen?
I can't recall.
Okay. Well, that happens actually a lot. You know, gas stations will do that. They'll sometimes they have to do that because they have to upgrade their tanks and such. But other times it's just because the gas station is either closing down or being sold. Now they may have closed it down and did this, and now they're going to sell it, and they got to do it again. It doesn't make much sense why they're doing it so often. You could see this happening twice in 1 year. It's actually creating more hazardous waste than anything, because they have you replace the tanks, and then they reopen shortly. Then they sell the gas station, and then they got to rip them out and replace them again, because the law says anytime it changes ownership or shuts down, it needs to be done. So it's not really using common sense. It's more black and white, you know, with their rules. And those rules don't seem to make more environmental waste than using common sense. And on page 156, 342, 343, they talk about these different areas that the DEP regulates. Now on page 156, you have this. Let's highlight the thing about CERCLA, that they created this $9 billion fund called the Super Fund. You need to know that. And you also need to know that the liability lands on the property owner. It's their responsibility for any cleanup when there's a release or threat of release of a hazardous substance on the property.
Okay, got it.
Got it, Yvonne? All right. And then on page 157, they talk about New Jersey legislature. See, this is saying what I was just talking about. The New Jersey Industrial Recovery Act, ISRA, provides for mandatory cleanup of industrial and commercial sites when they're closed, sold, or otherwise change ownership. So New Jersey legislature enacted the Wetlands Act of 1970, and under this, the Department of Environmental Protection regulates certain activities in designated wetlands. Who does? The DEP, not the EPA, the DEP. The EPA is the federal agency, and they would oversee these things if our state didn't have their own environmental agency, but we do, the DEP. And what gives the DEP the authority to regulate these areas? the Wetlands Act of 1970.
Compensation.
And on page 342 and 343 in the book, the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, are the regulators in New Jersey authorized by the EPA, the federal agency, to deal with the environmental issues here. And they put together a guide called Buy Bob, stands for Before You Buy, Before You Build. And it tells builders who they need to get permission from, not just building permits before they could do any construction. They need to get also permission from environmental agency, the DEP, when the property is in certain areas. Like the Highlands, when it's in the Highlands area, you got to get protection you got to get permission from the DEP. What gives the DEP the authority to regulate those areas? The Highland Water Protection Act. And so the DEP regulates all of these areas, but what gives them the authority to regulate each area? Well, in the Pinelands, it's the Pinelands Protection Act. In the wetlands, the Wetlands Protection Act. The coastal areas, CAFRA, the Coastal Area Facility Review Act, and the Waterfront Development Act. So that's all there is on page 342 and 343. Is just a matter of just pointing out that the self-named the areas are self-named by the laws that have similar names. That's what gives the DEP the authority to regulate those areas. Okay, so before you buy, before you build. Let me grab that screenshot from them links there. Add to our class links Word document. Yeah, right before you build. Bye bye. All right. And we have historic areas and landmark preservation sites, coastal areas, the beaches. The government said that the public beaches everybody should have access to public beaches on an equal basis. So that's what that statement's about. And then we have landmark preservation sites, areas that have been designated as a historic landmark, you know, because like in Rahway, we have that Girl Scouts house by the cemetery there. That's Merchant and Drovers. It's also referred to as the Girl Scout house. That's a Merchant and Drovers Tavern. That's actually a building that's a historic landmark site because George Washington slept there just before his famous crossing into the Delaware during the war. So historic districts, we have historic sections of town. Just about every town in New Jersey has a historic section. This battle was fought here. This battle was fought there. This area is a historic landmark or historic district. If you own a property in an area of a town that's designated as a historic district, you don't and you want to do construction on your property, you don't just get a building permit from the city. You also need to get permission from the local historic society. Now, typically, the internals of the building are free from regulation. You can remodel and rebuild all that you want to your heart's content. You get the building permits for it, you can do that. But you don't need any historic society's permission. But on the exterior of the building, properties that are in historic sections of town, the exterior of the building, usually you cannot change or modify the look, that historic look of the building, or even the footprint of it. Why am I telling you this? Well, as real estate agents, you got to be very careful with your puffing. What is puffing? It's exaggeration as part of salesmanship. You should be puffing when doing sales, but you got to be careful because facts need to be accurate. And you got to be careful about telling people, oh, you could always put a deck back here or put in a pool, because if the house is in a historic section of town, they may not be able to, because they need to first get permission from the local historic society, who may have an issue with it. All right, so let's highlight that on page 158. Regulations setting up local historic areas or landmark preservation districts may restrict the owner's right to alter certain old buildings on the exterior. Okay.
Okay.
And that's it for this chapter, finally. It was a short chapter, but there was a lot of other additional information we added in there for our own edification and learning experience there that was pretty valuable. So let's do the key terms to review. Before we get started, next to letter F, I want you to write above just the big, at the beginning there, before letter F, the word proposed. You're not crossing anything out. You're just writing the word proposed just above it. You're just trying to squeeze that in there. And let's start off now with A limit on the use of property that is set by the seller. What do we call that? How could the seller limit the use, how you use the property as a buyer? Where do they put that restriction? How about that?
Deed restriction.
There you go. 7 is A, deed restriction. Standards for construction that everybody needs to follow.
Um,
When you get work done on your house, do you need to make sure that it's up to snuff? And what exactly does that mean?
building code? Building code?
Building codes, correct. They need to be up to code, the building codes. 2 is B. Government's power to take property for a public use. What do we call that governmental power? What gives them the authority to do that?
Eminent domain.
9 is C, eminent domain. Permission for construction. So before you do any work on your house, what do you got to get? You got to get permission for construction. What do we call that?
Building permit?
It's a building permit. 3 is D. Inspect. What's that?
Oh, I said duh.
Yeah, see, sometimes you got to ask yourself a question about the question and it becomes blatantly obvious, right? Inspector's approval for human habitation. For any new construction, before a building, before anybody can live in it, what do you need to get?
A zoning ordinance?
What's that?
A zoning ordinance?
No. Well, zoning ordinances are the laws that say what could be built where and what purpose it could be used for. Now, once you have something built, before it can be inhabited by someone, they first need to make sure everything was up to code and everything was done right. So before you can move in, you need to get a permit. And what do we call that permit? It's an
Certificate of
inspection.
occupancy.
Yes, a certificate of occupancy. It's actually an inspection. When the inspection gets done, they issue this permit that says it's up for, it's safe for human habitation. So you get the CO. 5 is E. And this needs to be, you need to get that after any construction, modifications, or if there's a sale of the house. A proposed use that does not meet the zoning requirements. A proposed use that does not meet the current zoning requirements.
I don't know this one.
Variance, I'm just,
A proposed use would be a variance. 17 is
Yes.
F. You need to get a permit to vary from the current zoning requirement. So 17 is F. The primary method by which local governments recognize developmental goals. It's all a part of their master plan, correct. 13 is G. New Jersey's agency overseeing natural resources.
Department of Environmental Protection.
The Department of Environmental Protection Agency, correct.
Okay.
So that 8 was H. Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act of 1980 is also known as, for short, if you were to just abbreviate it.
Oh, I know. CERCLA.
CERCLA, 4 is I. Reversion of property to the state when an intestate owner dies without heirs.
That would be.
What? I didn't hear you. Escheat. 10 is J, correct. Discriminatory local regulations. What is a discriminatory local practice? That was outlawed by the Mount Laurel court decision.
Zoning?
Zoning ordinance?
Exclusionary zoning. 11 is K. A court action by which government takes property. So eminent domain is the power of the government to take the property, but what do we actually call the taking of it through the courts?
Police power? No?
Condemnation.
Condemnation. 6 L. Municipal restriction on the uses of real estate in various areas.
Read this.
What tells you the municipality puts restrictions on what can be built where in various areas of the town. What are these rules called?
The zoning ordinance.
18 is M. Existing use that does not meet the current zoning standards, but it doesn't need to because it's grandfathered in.
Oh, I knew this.
Is it P?
I forgot.
Non-conforming use. 15 is N.
What? Non-conforming use?
A non-conforming use. 14 is N as in Nancy.
Okey-dokey.
Once widely used wall covering, now containing a band metal.
Lead-based paint.
Lead-based paint. 12 is O. Naturally occurring radioactive gas.
Radon.
Radon. 16 is P. And what are considered dangerous levels of radon that require remediation?
4 pico something?
Yeah, 4 picocuries or picocuries. Right next to the word radon there in number 16, 4 PCI or 4 PCI/L. And, so on exams, it'll be expressed as either 4 PCI for 4 picocuries, the abbreviation, or 4 picocuries per liter. That's 4 PCI/L. Government's right to regulate for health and safety.
Police power.
That's a part of their police power. 15 is Q. Once banned hazardous mineral, once used for insulation.
Asbestos.
Asbestos. One is R. Correctamundo. All right. Chapter 10. So that concludes chapter 9. So let's stop